Well, our next guest is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and best-selling author of children's books. Her latest is called Stay This Way Forever, and she was recently named co-anchor of the weekend edition of ABC World News Tonight. Linsey Davis, great to have you, and congratulations on the new job.
Thank you so much. Glad to be back on the show. Thanks so much for having me, Val and Ryan.
Always great to have you here. We wish you were here in person, but of course, everything has to be virtual. But as Ryan said, congratulations. You are the second Black woman to anchor this particular program. You got a chance to interview the first, Carol Simpson. What does this mean to you to have this spot?
You know, I'm mindful of a quote by Shirley Chisholm in this moment. She said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Shirley Chisholm, obviously the first Black congresswoman. And, you know, I feel so fortunate. I feel so blessed to have been given this seat at the table because, you know, representation matters. Our experience matter and our experiences matter. And I think that you want that table to be crowded, right? Because you want people to be able to really lean in and offer, you know, hey, this is what I have gone through. This is my background. And that lens makes all for a better dialogue, really. And you know, so much has been made of, you know, Kamala Harris and the idea of, you know, you can't be it unless you see it. And so Carol Simpson was certainly able to plant that seed in so many, you know, Black and brown girls growing up, that this is possible. And I hope that I'm able to be a part of this next generation of giving that same idea to all girls of what we can do, especially in the world of journalism and beyond.
Yeah, and you just say casually, so much has been made of Kamala Harris. You forgot to say your line sister, right? Or not line sister, soror.
My soror, exactly.
Right, I'm getting it. You can tell I'm not Greek. I'm around enough Greek, but I know she is your soror.
Yes, certainly. And I know your daughter goes to Howard. And so, you know, go Bisons, right?
Go Bisons, that is for sure.
Yes, HU gets thrown around a lot around here. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Linsey, also a best-selling author of children's books. When did you first get the idea to be an author and to write these books?
You know, I think that even though the industries are so different as far as TV news versus writing children's books, in the end, I think that I'm a storyteller. And so it's kind of the same, except in this, rather than kind of talking about the devastating, tragic news that many of us, especially in the last year, have been living through. This is kind of a creative outlet where I can talk about the good news. And it was my son. I have a little boy named Aiden who's going to be 7 next month. And when I was reading books to him, I was thinking, I can do this. And that over time turned to, I need to do this, because it really started being an intentional, a deliberate effort for me to be able to find books that had characters that look like him, so that he was able to kind of see himself reflected in the pages. And I kind of put on my reporter hat and realized that there just wasn't this diversity in books that was needed. And rather than say, oh, this is such a problem, I figured, let me be a part of the solution.
Yeah, and you did just that. And this latest book is Stay This Way Forever, because don't you just want little Aiden to stay little forever?
I mean, that's the whole thing. And Val, you know this personally because yours are kind of grown pretty much at this point. But I think that there's half of you want to press pause, right? You want to savor these moments because you never know when is it going to be the last time they fall asleep in your lap and want to snuggle and hold your hand. But then I think that the other half of that is these qualities that you hope that they're going to take with them outside of, you know, this playground of childhood and into adulthood. So their creativity and curiosity and joy. You know, so many times my son will say, tomorrow is going to be the best day ever. And I love that he's still, you know, so hopeful about the possibilities of the next day. But really overall, I kind of look at this as a love letter from parents to their children. And I hope that parents will be able to read this to them and basically affirm how much they are loved and adored and cherished.
Yeah, we need to hear that speech about our weather lately here in Chicago. Maybe he can give us some positivity. I know that there was
You're going to be able to crawl your way out of that snow someday.
It's been bad. It's been bad. I know that there's a saying that you came across, right? And it was about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors.
Yeah, so this essay that I read several years ago, and it talked about how you need mirrors so that kids can see themselves reflected in the books, how you need mirrors. So you need mirrors, you need windows so that they can peer into a world that perhaps is unfamiliar to their own. And if that window is to become truly transformative, it can then transport them into that world. And so I think that that's so significant now because, my books do have Black and brown characters. And initially it was, just so my son would be able to see himself. But now I realize that this mission is quite bigger. And it's really about how parents, especially if you live in an area that's not particularly diverse, you need to expose your children, right? Give them some sense of familiarity. And hopefully, especially coming off of, the summer of the so-called racial reckoning, parents are going to realize, you know what? I need to have these conversations with my children too, about acceptance and about diversity. And perhaps that way to introduce them is through toys and through books if they're not coming into contact with people who don't look like them every day. Because otherwise, people have this fear of the unknown and what's not familiar to them. And so let's get them all introduced. Start out with a toy, start out with a book.
Right. You are one busy lady, I tell you, because you're still anchoring Prime Live as well.
Yes. And that's what's really great about doing World News Tonight Sunday and also ABC News Live Prime is that we're able to reach both audiences because quite often you have different people who kind of, sit down regularly at the same time every day to watch network TV news. And then others, often a younger demographic who's like, let me just pull up my cell phone and watch the news. Yeah. And, pretty much anytime on demand. And so it's a really unique opportunity that I'm really embracing and leaning into to be able to talk to both audiences.
Right. And, our business is taking a lot of, criticism, I guess is the word. But, you hear your friends talk about the media in a certain way. What needs to be done so that people will trust our journalists, again, who are working so hard to get it right?
I think just your answer, your question has the answer in it. You have to get it right? You have to get it right again and again and build up that credibility and that trust within the audience. And I think that there are so many networks or outlets that are just in a rush to be first and just to get it on. And they're not necessarily doing the fact checking that we need so much, especially in this time, because, when we're talking about just the pandemic, for example, it's so, life or death, people need information, but they need truthful information. They need the facts.
Absolutely. Linsey, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and for representing and for having a seat at that table. And make sure you at home pick up Stay This Way Forever. It hits bookshelves tomorrow. And of course, you can catch Linsey on ABC World News Tonight on Sundays.